And we are live. Welcome to Rekt Radio episode 93. Yeah, we got Mando traveling in his car today, and OSF isn't here today. I know everyone's disappointed about that. He had a lot to say last week, so we're giving him a break this week. And then we're here with CryptoPunk.
Unbelievable.
What'd you say?
Because it just
Yeah,
showed up last week, didn't say a word, and then doesn't show
didn't
up
say a
this
word.
week.
That was wild behavior. You might get fired from the show at this point. No, we would never do that. OSF is the best, but he's not here this week. Anyway, we were here with CryptoPunk 7213. Welcome. How are you, brother?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I've been a big fan, long-time listener, first-time caller, and excited to get into things.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Yeah, I mean, might as well get into the meat of it because and we got a little bit of a shortened show today. Mando, maybe I know you had spoke a little bit about what we're going to talk about on the AI fronts. Maybe kick it off, and I'll jump in when I can.
Yeah, I think the AI coin sector is a cycle where a lot of people are fading it and a lot of fully embracing it with both hands. And Bankless, as of about 3 weeks ago, started doing this weekly AI show, and Ejaaz is how you say your name. You are like the main host of that show, and it is phenomenal. It is a phenomenal show. You guys have got to be watching that on Bankless every single week. And I felt like as somebody who might be able to maybe convince some of the naysayers or people who think this is too mid-curve for them, we could get you on. I just thought you've been a great communicator of this whole narrative. So really, really pleased to have you on. And it feels as though today all the AI coins are pumping again. It's a good time to work out if this is the time to get involved. So maybe we'll start with just a bit of a background on yourself. Like how did you become the Bankless AI guy?
Well, firstly, thanks for that introduction, Mando. I appreciate it. My goal with the whole Bankless stuff is to make all of this stuff easy to comprehend. But yeah, a bit about my background and how I got involved in all of this. I've been in the crypto space for about 9 years now. Was helping build products at Consensus, which was the Ethereum studio, and then later on at Coinbase for about 3.5 years. Helped build a bunch of their staking and DeFi and NFT products. And then I left last year, did some work at an AI startup, but adjacently was keeping a very pertinent eye on all the crypto and AI stuff going on within our industry, and pretty much couldn't resist from jumping back in. And I came in the form of a liquid fund, which is focused on investing in this space, which basically is an excuse for me to nerd out and research this stuff 24/7. So the kind of Bankless stuff emerged from me having a conversation with Ryan and David pretty much over, I think it was like fried chicken in Salt Lake City during their conference. And they were like, hey, like we've got to rerun this conversation on a podcast. And it was only meant to be a one-off, and it kind of like built into this big thing, as I think a lot of people liked it. So that's like the shortened background on myself.
Yeah, you're
awesome.
definitely at the right time, right place.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I may have a bit of a delay. You can go, Gabriel.
No worries. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, it's definitely at the right time, right place for this narrative, right? Like to have that sort of history and looking at it from the product side for such a long time. It's kind of exploded. I mean, when was Go? It was like mid-October.
2 months ago.
I would like to say. Yeah, it feels like it's been
Feels like
an age
ages ago.
since then.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But were you interested in the AI sector before that? Because I think the AI sector before that was kind of like, it's kind of more like deep in sort of stuff, and a lot of people were, or there was like Tau, which is more like a rewards mechanism for LLMs. But was it really just the agents that really changed it for you?
Yeah, so let's just say it how it is, Mando. Like we were talking about like pre-agent times, crypto AI is pretty much infrastructure, which to many people and maybe even listeners to this audio broadcast is kind of boring. It's like, okay, I've got to learn about intricate data structures. I've got to learn about how LLMs work, all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty intense introduction to a pretty fascinating industry, right? So yeah, I was focused on all that kind of stuff. The thing that fascinated me the most and still does today is Bitensor, or the Tau Foundation. And what they're doing there that interests me the most is they basically built up the equivalent of an AI L1 for this space. And I think they're building some really important fundamental building blocks to, help make this space a reality, right? So to your point, it's all deep end stuff. But why I'm super excited about this whole agent meta is, well, kind of, let me give you my thesis on this, right? To date, we have built out the blockchain industry, and the blockchain industry can be broadly categorized as a bunch of infrastructure with a few consumer use cases, right? You've got a bunch of people storing their value in BTC, ton of stablecoin activity, and then you've got a number of different dApps across a bunch of different chains, right? Really cool, but like there's a bunch of people that I know outside of this space that has no idea what's going on, right? And as it should be, because we have kind of like a marketing problem, or this stuff is just too hard to kind of figure out, right? You've got to spin up a wallet, you've got to sign an approval tax on, you've got to learn what a contract address is. It's just all bizarre, right? But now you have this medium that can kind of direct one's intention, i.e. AI agent. You could just ask it, hey, my friend just shilled me this ticker. Can you tell me where I can buy it? Or better yet, can you buy it for me? Or can you swap my ETH for some kind of Solana coin or a Solana coin and vice versa? You have this medium that connects all the complex infrastructure to a very simple user interface that might look like something like a ChatGPT, or it might just simply be Twitter, and you just add an account and tell it what to do and it does it for you. That is a very simplistic, boiled down version of why I think this agent meta is going to be huge. We can dig into why or what else, but that's kind of like the summary.
Yeah, I think that kind of hits the nail on the head there in terms of it's not necessarily a different use case. It's more like a new user. It feels like we're scaling the number of users very, very quickly this way. And they can probably do all the stuff that we were all doing, but that, if you tried to onboard somebody to do anything in DeFi, it was an occupational hazard. Whereas if you have these sort of agents who can do these sort of things to you, you can onboard people to an agent, I think, much quicker. And then it can really scale. So I agree. I think the agents are the other thing that really do shift and create a whole new, potentially hundreds of millions, billions of users here for crypto in a way that interact with it, that we weren't able to interact with it before. Okay, so I think a lot of people are bullish on AI meets crypto, and maybe even bullish on AI agents. Why should they be bullish on these AI agent coins? Because I think that's the thing that people kind of break down, because they think, I don't really know, why should I buy this? And I think there's some validity there, but yeah, maybe I'd love to hear your view on that.
So let me steelman the case for why I think these agent coins are broadly directionally correct and a worthy investment. And I'm not going to shill specific tickers, but I'm just going to talk about, why I think this space is important, right? So there's a fun analogy going on here, right? Typically, in our history of investing in blockchain tokens, we have some huge, call it an institutional thesis, a broad and grand vision, right? It's like we want to build the scalability layer to put finance on chain, or whatever that might look like, right? Or build out the global centralized exchange, but now it's on a decentralized infrastructure. Really grand visions that institutions and retail can get behind and understand. But what's often come from that is, a decent chunk of really valuable projects with worthy tokens, but then also a bunch of, quite frankly, shit that didn't acquire much of fundamental value or were more memes of themselves. This agent meta is kind of taking the reverse approach. So it appears like a meme, it looks like a meme, it acts in a very mimetic way, but is actually secretly dogfooding you platform value. And this is my kind of big take, right? Like a common argument or critique that I hear is, these agent coins are just listed and, pumped on literal pump.fun. So therefore it's just a meme coin, right? But I could also take the argument that a small percentage of these agent coins launched on pump.fund is actually just a fair distribution mechanism. And these coins are being used to coordinate an agent that actually brings value. But what kind of value does this bring? Well, there's a number of different examples, right? Let's take, and again, these are all just purely examples, AI XBT. right? So there's this agent that has a huge Twitter following. I think it's up 6K from yesterday and up 50K from 2 weeks ago. So it's at 110,000 followers right now, which is just insane traction and beats any other KOL in this space. So why is it so popular? Well, it's amazing at delivering financial alpha, which means that, advising you on what an investment might make sense, or what where a certain industry might be trending within crypto. It does this 24/7 non-stop tweets. It's no wonder that it's got to the point that it does, right? And it has a token, AXBT. So people often ask, okay, but like it's a meme coin that kind of loosely represents the agent, but doesn't really directly tie into the value. Well, that's what the team is now effectively working on, right? There was an announcement by the team or from one of the developers on the team that you could very soon spend or use that token to get access to your own Bloomberg terminal version of AIXBT. So imagine being able to ask this agent directly a query about your tokens or investments, or to give you access to alpha about a certain project. It can do that instantly in your own private chat GPT interface. This is just one example of many. The point I'm trying to make is what appears as a meme coin, what appears as a fun, entertaining agent, is secretly being dogfooded to you as a platform. You see this with Zerebro. You see this now with Goat, with Andy announcing that he's going to be launching an open source platform that is similar to AI16Z DAO's ELIZA framework. For anyone that doesn't know, ELIZA is basically an open source framework that is the #1 trending GitHub repo, which means that there are a ton of developers building on these frameworks. If you believe all of this is meme coins, you have to also ask yourself, why are there so many software engineers from talented AI backgrounds building on these things?
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree. I've kind of just been delving into the AI space, the AI coin space over the past couple of weeks, and I'm wholly impressed with what's going on here as well. I kind of thought they were meme coins on the surface as well until doing some research, and I'm like, wow, this is like actually the cross between, they've transcended meme coins. It's not a meme anymore. I'm involved checking it. I've been buying some of the agents, buying some of the platforms. I think it's interesting that there's like infrastructure plays that are available that are kind of being, built as memes right now. I'm curious your thoughts on what you think the near-term use cases are for some of these infrastructure plays, kind of like a Griffin AI, where it's like the AI controls a wallet. You just query it to do things via a chat GPT like interface. I mean, like you could tell these agents to essentially just like buy me this, and it takes this wallet and conducts transactions, trade this. What do you think like the best near-term use cases are for this kind of thing?
So I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with on-chain transactions. So I think all of this kind of starts with an agent being able to, number one, own a wallet. And there's a difference, right? When I say own a wallet, I mean literally be able to own the private keys to a on-chain wallet which holds tokens within it. So that's number one, step one. And then step two is being able to do things with the assets within that wallet, whether that's trade it, whether that's tip its community when the community gives value to it in a tweet or in a response or whatever that might be, or it can be as something as crazy as like take out a loan or deposit in Aave or whatever that might be, right? So I think that's going to be the underpinnings of a larger kind of, I call it agentic economy that builds from all of these things. To be clear, and this might sound crazy now, but I don't think it's going to sound crazy in about 6 months to a year's time. I think that the future users of blockchains are going to be these agents. I think they're going to outnumber humans like 10 to 1 at least. And I think this is going to happen much quicker and sooner than people think. So if we assume this happens, we have to have a way that these agents kind of interact with each other. The number one software tooling that will allow them to do that are crypto rails. There are going to be people and teams that build it out in the centralized way, right? Stripe's already announced that they're going to be able to give AI agents a bank account stipend, right? So as a human, you could give it a grant, but that doesn't scale, in my opinion. And it's being shown right now in 2 months of development within this meta, where we see just an explosion of activity. So I think it's going to start with on-chain transactions. I think we're going to see it as early Q1. the reason why I say this is I know that there's a number of teams that are trying to unlock this. AIXBT, the AI16Z team with their 2 agents, Degen, Spartan AI, and PMAI Arca. There's a number of these people that are trying to figure out. The Zerebro team is trying to do it with Blormy. So, I think we're going to see a bunch of these experiments pop up. I just want to kind of caveat this with, I think 90% of this stuff is probably going to be atrocious. And so be very cautious, tread carefully. But 10% is absolutely going to nail it. And that's what you want to focus on.
Yeah. No, I think that's kind of Mando said that in the past too, where the agents will outnumber the humans 10-1, something like that. He told me about that once. That same speculation.
That's my belief.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree too.
So the only real thing that I can compare this to, because it feels like this cycle's thing, like if 2 cycles ago it was DeFi and last cycle it was NFTs, AI feels like it could be that narrative this cycle. You can see it dominating mindshare every single week.
It's definitely going to be that trend. Yeah. It's definitely going to be that trend.
I think a lot of people, particularly from like myself and KBM, like we came in, well, I definitely came in 2021, KBM came before me, but it's sometimes you can just be too early. And sometimes you can think stuff is going to be the thing. And then that's just because they had, some sort of small advantage at the start, and then somebody else comes in and it completely changes. I feel as though one of the strange things about AI and the way that people talk about it, particularly, if you really extend it to the singularity, is just that the pace of innovation is just so unbelievably quick.
Yep.
Often it's built upon open source frameworks, particularly in this sleeve of it, at least in crypto. And so the barriers to entry seem so low. And I think that's also where people are, and that's kind of the same as NFTs to a certain extent. Once there were thousands of PFPs and you could make them in seconds, it became a bit ridiculous. It kind of feels like that right now. Do you think people should be going all in, or just really paying attention and waiting a little bit, because this is something that I'm just a little bit wary of. It's like sometimes you can just be too early. It's going to be an absolutely massive meta, but maybe you all get wrecked.
Yeah, I completely see your point of view. I think for anyone that hasn't been, just paying sole attention to this meta for the last 2 months, a lot of this will seem completely crazy and bizarre. So my initial answer to this, Mando, is never go all in to a newly emerging meta in some kind of like unrestrained form. I think that is incredibly, not advisable, and it's something that I don't do myself, right? However, to your latter point, it's really important to pay attention. And your number one goal, in my opinion, and I'm speaking from an investor's perspective as I run a liquid fund that invests in this stuff, you need to focus on who might be the emerging category winners. If you're able to define who those are within a meta, which you assume or bet is going to be huge, typically staying within the emerging winners or category winners is a good strategy to pursue. Now, what those emerging winners are, who the category leaders are, we're still figuring that out right now. There are people that would answer, with 3 or 4 particular agents, and I actually see this pop up over my timeline more and more over the last 2 weeks. Emphasis on last 2 weeks, so it's literally very new. But you could argue, is that becoming consensus, or am I just in a bubble? It's important to be able to kind of like step away from this, see what this looks like in a month's time. But all I will say is, we are starting to see a repeated pattern of development from specific teams or specific tokens. And that hasn't changed or gone astray. In fact, to your point around open source, it's gotten exponentially better. And I think that's down to one key difference. With a lot of blockchain projects that have launched in the past, and I'm talking about blockchain projects in different metas, they tend to kind of build in silo and then launch like an alternative L1, right? So you have an L1 with different kind of like coding programming language. So you got to learn that. Developers, they got to build their own ecosystem, et cetera, et cetera. This is completely broken with the AI agent meta. All these different frameworks or teams that are building all these foundational platforms can interoperate with each other. In fact, they are encouraging it. so that the entire pie grows together. And that's why you're seeing so much innovation at a pace that you've never seen before in any other sector within crypto.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree. I mean, it is special. It's actually the first time I've been like excited about a meta in quite a long time, which also scares me because usually when we have a guest on about a meta and when we're all feeling like, wow, we could reach escape velocity on this one for sure, it might be too hot. And like you said, like there's agents and coins and things that happen that are going from 0 to 50 million overnight. Just yesterday, I saw one happen. I mean, there's definitely things that are getting ahead of themselves. Probably it's hard to sift and figure out which ones are the true winners versus which might be like a LARP or just somebody building something that isn't even truly what they say. So there's definitely landmines here, but it feels like if you do catch these ones that, you know, hit escape velocity, there will be some really special trades to be had. On that note, I'd like to ask, like, what are the best ways to identify what these projects might be? How do you identify which project is legit, which isn't, like, you know, a scam or a LARP or, you know, actually doing what they say? I think that's another thing that's a little different than meme coins. A lot of these projects, you can go in and they share their GitHub, right? And our GitLabs, and like they share a little bit their stuff because it's open source and right there. So there is substance, but I'm just curious how you go about, you know, filtering this.
Yeah. So again, you kind of nailed it on the head, KBM. Like number one is their tooling and code open source, right? And by the way, this is like the boring answer, right? No one likes to hear that, but they're like, oh, go look at the code. And maybe you don't understand what's going on, but maybe you could send it to a developer friend to check it out and see whether it works well. But there's another way more important indicator, which will tell you whether the thing is good or not. Number one is there an agent that's live? Can I interact with it? Okay, but I don't know if it's autonomous. And by the way, we should get into that because I have a hot take on all agents needing to be autonomous right now. But is it autonomous? Is it not? Who cares? Did it make you laugh? Did it bring value to your life? Did it give you alpha that was useful for you? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself. And in no other meta so early on have we seen real use being shown to the user. Think about it, right? You guys were around for the Ethereum ICO era. It was an amazing demonstration of being able to raise capital. Less effective at showing that the white papers were, you know, whether it was full of shit or not. The next thing is like, you know, NFTs and stuff. There were loads of cool NFTs. The art, that was the next step in utility, right? It was like, oh, this art is cool. I like the community. It's a good vibe. Are we going to get rugged or not? I have no idea, but we're going to learn about the team and figure it out. The AI agent stuff is kind of less easy to fake, shall we say. Now, that's not to say you can't do it. There are a bunch of models which just kind of run off of a chat GPT instance or a Claude instance, and you have to be mindful of that. But the number one indicator is, does this agent make me, you know, does it bring value to myself? Does it entertain me if it's an entertainment one? Does it help me make better investments? How does this help me in general? And that's something you can't really fake.
You muted, Mike.
Me now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of these tokens that we're going to look back on in 6 months and be like, oh my god, like that was way too high. Like, what the hell was this? At the same time, I do think this is going to be a massive space, and I do think it will probably define the major narrative now for 2025. I don't see a world where that doesn't happen. At the same time, how would you break down? We've had 2 months basically since the agents came on the scene. For people that, and actually there's quite a lot of variety in there, you know, how are you broadly top down looking at these in terms of groups?
Sure. I put out a tweet about this. I can pull it up. But effectively, I think about this in 2 broad categories right now, and there are definitely more, but I don't want to call them categories until they actually become something more than what they are. So number one is financial AGI. Now, AGI stands for artificial general intelligence. It is a very loaded term. and you should be wary of people that throw it around, including myself. But I'm using it for thematic purposes. So an AGI would mean it is the ultimate end goal of all this agent stuff. It is a superior intelligence that you can ask to do something, and it just knows. It knows what you want. It serves it up for you on a platter, right? It can work autonomously 24/7. That's what an AGI is, loosely or roughly, in its sense. So what do I mean by bucket number one, financial AGI? Basically, some form of a mixture of agents, or maybe it's a single agent, or maybe it's a swarm of agents that you can interact with that can do all of your financial stuff for you. That means managing your funds or assets. That means investing for you, and it understands your risk profile or whatever that might be. That means paying your bills. That means being able to find new alpha to invest in. That means figuring out, a way to interact with the traditional meat space world. So invest in brick and mortar properties or businesses, as well as being able to kind of move on to your on-chain assets as well and bridge between both of them. Basically, something that manages your entire financial world for you individually as a person. And also maybe if you run a company as well, right? Maybe you have like a financial department that is run by this AGI, right? So bucket number one, these agents that are going to collectively work together to materialize this grand vision of financial AGI. So right now, we don't have anything that's live that's amazing right now. You have AI XBT that's giving you good on-chain advice on what tokens that might be worth investing in over a short time period. I would say that we're very, very far away from realizing that, but that's one bucket that I see emerging, right? A number of teams are trying to figure out what this on-chain agent that has access to a wallet and is able to trade looks like. The second bucket that I'm seeing emerging, I kind of call it creative AGI. So these are agents or an AGI that is focused on entertainment value and interacting and building communities through media mediums. So that could be art, that could be streaming, like what we're doing right now, that could be producing music, and a bunch of the like. One main example of this is the project Zerebro, which is managed by or led by Jeffy Yu and a team of, I think, 8 people. Absolutely cracked engineers. They're just kind of like locked in. They're the only ones right now that are leading the space in terms of experimenting with autonomous media generation. So Zerebro has co-produced 2 EPs that have been released on Spotify. The latest EP actually has over 300,000 streams, and it's earned creator revenue from there. It's tweeted a bunch, which has now got a lot of entertainment value for it, and it's earned creator shares. It's launched its own NFT collection, and it's made a bunch of money from there. So we're really seeing kind of like the underpinnings of this creative AGI start to meld. And what does that look like? It's probably going to look like a swarm of agents that eat into the KOL space or the social media influencer space. They're going to become finely attuned to what their audience wants or what different people want to consume in terms of their content. And then they're able to, work 24/7 again, which will outwork any other human. So those are the 2 buckets that I would put them in, Mando.
Yeah, you lost my thoughts. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, power cut where I was randomly. See, yeah, I would look at them like, but I think a lot of this is defining it in some ways by. I think the thing is, utility is such a bearish term in crypto, or it has been for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, I know, and a lot of people are now coming on and being like, "This is the new DeFi meta," but everyone got wrecked on a lot of these DeFi governance coins, or they never really. They want to be. Do you think it's going to be different this time when it comes to utility?
So with respect to a bull cycle, Mando, I don't think it's going to be different. Do I think some of these agent coins are going to get massively blown out in terms of valuation? Absolutely, right? But if you ask me what my long-term framing of this is, over multiple cycles or between now and the next cycle, I think real value and utility is gonna be implemented here. And I would say that this is particularly going to happen with AI agents purely because of the consumer value that it brings. What do I mean by consumer value? The fact that the 3 of us can have a conversation about this right now and then go and interact with an agent that I'm speaking about. that is something that hasn't happened before. Like maybe it's like, here's an NFT collection, buy this NFT, it's fun, let me put it as my PFP. You're going to be able to do so much more with a single agent purely because of its ability to do a number of different things for you, right? So I think in the short term, it's going to get blown out. I think some of these valuations are, it'll be hard for me to be like, wow, it's super justified, right? Based on what the current agents look like. So I think we're kind of front running what will eventually be built. So there'll be blowouts, there'll be bear markets, there'll be another bull cycle, but the underlying infrastructure is going to change the way we interact with this entire space.
Yeah. No, I'd have to agree. I mean, go ahead, Mike. You have something to touch on real quick? I was going to say, I'm looking at these agents. I've used AI XBT, and it spits out a lot of good stuff. There was the entertainment ones that I was looking at, and some of them are funny. I think the one thing that you need to do when you're separating and filtering these is find one that can be truly unique. Because sometimes it does get a little repetitive when these agents are going 24/7 and kind of just spitting out bullshit. With that being said, the agents are definitely what seems like the easiest from a user perspective to get a grasp on and pick one and that they like and invest in. Mm-hmm. Then we have the agent creation platforms like Top Hat, like Virtuals, which has been crazy on Base. And then we have some of the infrastructure plays. Is there anything else in this sector that we should be aware of or that you could be investing in? Like, it seems like agents are kind of like that hot, like they go boom bust, I'm sure, and they probably will go boom bust based on people's taste. And it's like, could be like a fad, like fads essentially. Like, oh, we like this creator agent, boom it, bust it. The Top Hats and Virtuals of the world maybe are the picks and shovels. And then you've got some of the other more esoteric infrastructure plays. Is there anything else that we should be looking at here that you can touch on?
No, I think you summarized it well. Putting on my investor cap for a moment, I think it's always a safer bet to invest in infrastructure for an underlying technology in its initial kind of growth. It's more risky, but maybe higher reward to invest in the agents themselves, right? And then there's like a weird hybrid where you've invested in the agent, but it's also the platform as well. So Truth Terminal is an example. Zerebro is an example. Virtuals is more explicitly a platform play, right? And then you have agent specific, right? Which is like, I want to buy Bully from Dolos Diaries, right? Because it made me laugh. But that's, to your point, can get commoditized pretty soon, right? Like what happens when it becomes less funny when it's just posting 24/7 shit posting, right? So I think it makes sense to kind of place your bets if you are within this space on the infrastructure side. I think those pies are going to grow together. But I do think you see a hybrid of meme coin or like kind of like a crazy play with an infrastructure component to it. And those, to be honest, have been the ones that have been leading, right? Look at, I'll give you a few examples. Eliza is the main framework, right? Not the token. It's the framework that was built by AI16Z DAO. That token has broken all-time highs today as we speak. I think it's touching like an $800 million market cap. Look at Zerebro. It made a similar price movement off the bottom of yesterday because the team announced that they were going to be open sourcing their own models and allowing for fine-tuning and allowing for anyone to build on their models. Again, another infrastructure play. Truth Terminal then announced that they were going to launch their Loria framework, which again is another platform play. So I think these hybrid ones where you can kind of balance a meme or meme-ish coin with infrastructure are going to be the category leaders. And that's what we're pretty much seeing so far.
The other thing I would say is, do you think we're a little bit early in terms of these are all kind of nobodies? Well, they were nobodies, let's say, but no one had heard of these AI researchers really before this had happened, right? Yep. And this is clearly not where the money has been spent so far for AI research. Do you think we're now going to see like big, well-funded teams come in here? And because everything's open source, right? Like you can catch up pretty quickly. So what do you think about that? The idea that we've basically just seen a few kind of not poor researchers, but just like more niche. They were kind of half in, half out. often much younger. Like Jeffy's very young, for example. But
Yeah.
do you think we're now going to see like very well funded AI research teams come in here and start playing around?
Yep, 100%. So through backdoor conversations that I've been having with other funds or VCs, they're currently entertaining quite a large amount of deal flow around, like, whether you want to call it institutionalized teams or well-funded teams that are going to build a more, serious vision and infrastructure and really think about how this space materializes. That's number one. I think DWF actually announced a $20 million fund, which I know is kind of tiny in retrospect to the entire space, but is a start or a hint towards where this is going to eventually end up. The Solana hackathon that's happening right now has a 200K prize bounty for AI agents that are being built. So I think this inertia is going to, slowly get going. When you look at like the agents being built off of ELIZA, which again is the AI16Z DAO framework, you see, I've spoken to a number of teams that are non-crypto. They just come from the AI startup space, and they're starting to build and experiment with a bunch of these things. Think about it. These kids have spent 10 years studying machine learning and AI, and they want to now be able to apply this, and they're sitting in their current jobs and they're thinking, well, if I'm able to come to this space and build in a very open source fashion and get funded for that behind a community that owns an asset for an agent that I've built that serves up utility for that user, maybe that's something I want to entertain. And so we're seeing that.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of the first like narrative or sector that I kind of want to like run through a wall for and like really start throwing a lot of money at. And I have been for the past couple of weeks. It's one that I feel it, the use case is big. It's people think either fading it or maybe a lot of people don't even know this is actually happening right now. Yep. It's kind of under the radar. With that being said, like, creating value here is something that maybe is tough. And how do these coins translate to value? Like, what's the purpose? Why does an agent need a coin? I know earlier you said there's the Bloomberg like terminal coming to AI XBT. Yeah. Maybe you have to use the coin to use it or like pay for it, or where does value go to the coin? I know without value or like most crypto coins don't necessarily have valuable backings, but I'm curious, why does AI need a coin?
Yeah. So I think there's a few reasons why, and then I can get into specific use cases, but let's talk about it thematically for a second. You can't bootstrap your product in a more efficient and aggressive way than with a crypto token. That is probably been one of the number one use cases for crypto, aside from being an investment vehicle, is how can I aggregate attention from a community of like-minded individuals as soon as possible and in a very, overextended manner. So we're seeing that with a bunch of these projects, right? Zerebro token, AI16Z, GOAT, it's all like hundreds of millions, over $1 billion in valuation per team, right? Or per token. So that's one thing, aggregating attention. The second point around value accrual, I think, is still being ironed out, but we're starting to see emergent use cases. So you mentioned AIXBT. You don't have to spend the token, but I think if you hold 600K's worth, which I think roughly equates to 100K, which is quite expensive, it prices out the average retail user. But if you think about it as an institutional access to a Bloomberg terminal, that might be something that, you could kind of like run with. And they're going to come up with tiered approaches as well, where maybe you just spend less or you hold a smaller amount and you're able to access a kind of variable version of it. That's number one. Zerebro is also kind of moving in that direction, right? So Zerebro, the agent, produced a number of NFTs. If you hold that NFT, you are now able to basically speak to its own terminal as well. So we're seeing this like very rudimentary set of use cases. Now, what does that eventually extend into? Well, I think Virtuals is probably like the best example of like a on-chain native platform, which was able to tie in a pretty cool set of tokenomics around the Virtuals token. So for those who are unaware, you need the Virtuals token to be able to deploy an agent and launch your own agent coin. In order to purchase a token or purchase an agent token on the Virtuals platform, you need Virtuals to be able to buy it. So the pools are Virtuals and the agent coin. And then in order to kind of leverage or use some of these agents, you end up burning either its own native token or the Virtuals token itself. So there's an interesting flywheel that is getting put into very on-chain native platforms. Where I think the focus should be now is how you can tie in non-crypto native platforms like, the Eliza framework, which has on-chain integrations, but also a lot of off-chain integrations, how you tie those two things together. And there are a few things being experimented on right now, like, being able to tie the token in with other agent launchers, or being able to tie in with other, other metrics of usage. It's to be seen.
Yeah, that's something I feel as though everyone's going down that route. This is kind of where I went back to. I just find the moats so difficult to judge. Like Virtuals was unique, and it's got up to a $1.5 billion. But now I've seen like 10 different people doing that, and then it becomes a quality of team. I agree with that, but I feel like they're all now starting to do the same. My honest view is I've tried to focus on the ones which I feel have the strongest moats. I still like Go. I like Fartcoin as well, because I feel like they're more left curve plays.
Fartcoin's amazing.
And then I have which are both basically truth terminal memes. And then with the other ones, like I go back and forth. Like sometimes I feel like, oh, this is gonna be really good, and then I just don't know if it's gonna last. AI16Z seems to have a pretty strong lead, but the actual AI16Z coin seems quite different from Eliza, which is what if it was like the Eliza coin and it was like what you said with Virtuals and it was integrated, I'd be like, okay, this thing can go to many billions here.
Right.
But it's not. It's like a DAO. It's trying to be the first on-chain hedge fund. That's quite different. Like then you're stuck in a DAO token and you thought you've bought Eliza, but actually you've bought this one of their coins, right? You've actually bought the AI version of Mark Andreessen, which, like you said, I don't think they're going to get to the ability to beat Mark Andreessen in terms of trading by Q1. I think in fact it could actually be bearish.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
At how bad it looked in the end. So at this stage, I'm really, really wary. But I feel as though I found strength just in the memes, because I felt like that's the stuff that can that's stuff that has the strongest moat.
It's the left curve play. I mean, you're right. And to be explicitly clear, I wasn't suggesting that these kinds of tokens will outperform their traditional providers or counterparts in Q1. I think we're going to be making several steps towards that. But you're right. Like a lot of these things are super early. And with the AI16Z stuff, I won't say too much about this, but the team is very much aware of this and are making certain steps and movements towards amending that. But that is all I will say.
Yeah, it makes sense. They have such a valuable framework that they kind of need to make that come back to AI16Z. Okay, cool. That was 45 minutes. I know you had to run. You had a hard stop. So
sorry, I can't be here for longer.
Thanks.
I think we need another one of these, though. I feel like the convo just started. Maybe in a couple of weeks when we see some more valuations shake out.
Come back whenever. Like I feel as though in a month's time we're gonna have to talk about AI agents again. Also, obviously, you have your own show now on Bankless, which everyone should go and watch. It's happening every week, it feels like at the moment, just because of the breakneck speed.
So we released an episode today, next episode tomorrow.
Awesome. All right, pump all our bags. Great to have you on, man. And we will we'll do this again very, very soon.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks a lot. That was awesome.
Speak to you soon.
Have a good one.